and the job that you've done in light of all of the things that you have to go through. I guess a little bit like me also, but I will say that you have been really outstanding, incredible people.
So that was him doing a media bash thing first, and I think we have now how he addressed the specifics of the article here.
Somebody in what I call the family New York Times that's talking about he's part of the resistance within the Trump administration. This is what we have to deal with. And, you know, the dishonest media, because you people deal with it as well as I do. But it's really a disgrace. I will say this. Nobody has done what this administration's done in terms of getting things passed and getting things through. An article was just printed, just came out a few minutes ago.
All right, and you saw the rest of that. So we've shown you everything from the president, and you knew it. I started with a Ben Sass fight. I actually want to replay the Ben Sass fight because that event only underscores his analysis. Take a listen.
What the fuck, y'all?
I'm not trying to beat up on the president here, but the truth is, you build a team by building a cause that's bigger than yourself.
Exactly.
Right now, so much of what comes out of the White House is just trying to figure out how to divide America.
Exactly.
Mic drop. You.
Well, it is proof positive when you get law enforcement to clap against the media. That is not useful. I am confused by this entire day. I began by playing on the radio show after that.
It's not just today. We're all confused.
The entire Bob Woodward, Donald Trump, Kellyanne Conway tape. It's 11 minutes. It's posted in the Washington Post. He's in control. He's calm. He's pushing back. He's making points. It's a measured. It's got nothing to do with the chaos that we've seen for the rest of the day. So whoever wrote this did not advance the cause of reducing chaos. And Ben Sass also in that interview pointed out the Senate's in chaos. The only thing that isn't in chaos is the Supreme Court, and Judge Kavanaugh today said he wants to be part of a team of 9. It's the last working institution in the country.
But I thought Ben Sass also made the point of we've politicized the courts because of a failing second branch of government, which I thought was spot on.
Well, to your point here about didn't do anything to stop the chaos by writing this, what if that's not the author's point? I mean, this reads like somebody who wants to start a confrontation, who is basically calling out to the public, and I think calling out to the second branch of government, to Congress, right, and saying, this is what I am seeing. It comes on the heels of what Bob Woodward saw. It comes on the heels of all the things that we've reported. This is someone who said they talked about invoking the 25th Amendment to remove the president. This is an author, I think, saying, do something.
Okay, where is the person who is willing to put his or her reputation and name on the line and resign and say, you know what? This is not okay. This is not normal. This is not good. This is what's happening. You people need to know it. You asked about guardrails earlier. I have been an arguer in favor of the guardrails are working, and I am increasingly worried that they're not, and I have increasingly of the belief that everybody with a reputation to protect or the shreds of a reputation to protect should just get the heck out of the burning house.
By the way, no, let me tell you this, though. Let me push back on this idea of whether it should be right for the person to sign their name. Isn't this op-ed getting more attention because it does not
Well, it
have any
depends who
signature on
it is.
No, but that's
Guessing game will keep it alive.
it's the guessing game, which is maybe, to Shane's point, part of the point, which is to force everybody to have this conversation.
Well, this conversation ought constitutionally to begin in the House of Representatives. And the person who wants to put their name on this, every Democrat is running away from impeachment. But in fact, if you're talking about the 25th Amendment seriously, you ought to be demanding that the Democrats put forward articles of impeachment.
But
End of story.
we might not be either in an impeachment situation or in a 25th Amendment situation to be in a serious situation where people should, my argument is, have the guts to come forward and say what you believe with your name attached.
We go to the White House. Kristen Welker's back after that. Okay, so the president's trying to address it. It was sort of a predictable pushback by him, going after the medium rather than the substance of the piece. Do you get a sense behind the scenes that they are just feeling their way around on this?
I absolutely do, Chuck, and I think that was true of the Woodward book as well, which is so stunning because they knew it was coming out. This was the program the president counter-programming at his best. I mean, this is what he knows how to do. He whips out another article that talks about the jobs number, and of course that's his go-to talking point. But I thought the optics were pretty striking. He sort of walked away from his event. He was isolated there with the reporters in full sort of fire and fury mode, punching back at the question that was asked by Peter Alexander about this op-ed. So what happens? What is the messaging going to look like tomorrow? My anticipation is that we're going to see a lot more tweets. Again, I just go back to this point. When this first broke, we went up to the senior officials here to try to get some type of reaction, and they were just processing this in real time. So that is the response of a president who is really responding in real time almost, Chuck. I mean, the article just came out a short time ago. So I don't think they have a communication strategy at this point moving forward. Will they get one by tomorrow? Again, my bet is on the fact that we're going to see more tweets. But this, again, I think fuels what has been a discord and a chaos here at the White House and raising questions, Chuck, about whether we're going to see more high-level departures here.
It's a fair point there. Kristen Walker, thank you. Well, joining me on the phone now is Mark Lauder. He works, I believe, over the campaign political side, on the off side of the White House. He is a former special assistant in the Trump administration, in the Trump White House. Mark, thank you for doing this. You're joining us on the phone. I appreciate it last minute. So let me ask you just straightforward, what's your initial reaction to this? This is perhaps a colleague of yours, perhaps somebody who shared the same title as you, a special assistant to the president, not some mid-level staffer. What's your gut reaction?
Well, thanks for having me, Chuck. I, like many other people, just finished reading it just moments ago for the first time, and it concerns me for a couple of reasons. Well, first off, we don't know the rank and the title and the position that this person holds, and while and I'll include myself in this as well. While my position sounds, when I was in the White House as a special assistant to the president, sounds very senior. There are a lot of meetings that took place at a lot higher levels than I was. And so we don't have that context to be able to fill out how this person might think. And to the point I think that was being made a little bit earlier, I do think it's a little concerning that we do have someone who is unnamed that is making these kinds of allegations. If they are so concerned about the White House, the presidency,
well, because their life's on the line.
They would make these charges, yet not so much that they were willing to risk their own job for it by putting their name next to it or stepping down. I think that there's a bit of a credibility issue there.
So you would urge this person to resign, go public and resign immediately. If this is how you feel, if this is what it is, that would be your advice for this former colleague of yours?
Well, first
Watch it be Mike Pence.
It puts you in a very difficult position if you are working in that administration and you are working with my former colleagues. They don't know who you are, and so it creates a level of mistrust that we don't know that this person, whatever role, whatever position, whatever duties they may have, are they in fact going to be carrying those out to advance the causes of the administration, or are they now going to be working on some counter programming on or running resistance against the administration's goals? And there needs to be a bond between those teams, and that's regardless of politics. The White House staff are often very close because of the stress, the hours they put in, the sacrifices they make, and when you start carrying at those levels of trust, and it really tears that bond apart, and I do think it will impact the ability of the administration to get things done.
People are human beings. That's absolutely true. It's hard to imagine this doesn't create some sort of paranoia on a lot of levels. Mark, let me ask you this, and maybe you don't want to say, but do you recall conversations like this in the halls of the White House?
No, I can tell you, and that's without a doubt, I can tell you there were serious policy debates. And I think one of the things that I took in the very first glance reading of this op-ed was And what we see every day is that the president is willing to challenge orthodoxy, whether it be Republican orthodoxy about free trade and tariffs, to achieve what he believes is the right move long term. That can definitely rub people the wrong way. And the president does surround himself with people who disagree. I mean, he had a very well-known, high-profile Democrat, Gary Cohn. I'm not saying Gary Cohn was part of this. I'm using this as an example, in the White House arguing against other people who brought a different perspective to things. And that's something that he has often done, is making folks defend their position, pitting different positions against each other so you can reach the right conclusion. And I can see how that can rub some people the wrong way. We've seen that just using the debate, or also using the debate about how we are dealing with some of our allies, whether it's in trade issues or in NATO and their support of NATO. That can rub some of the more orthodox, traditional, mainstream thinkers in these areas the wrong way.
Mark, so are you trying to argue that possibly the president's sort of knee-jerk reactions at times to things, that his staff took him too seriously? Maybe, and is that the, I'm trying to understand it, that they misinterpreted some of his rants or something?
Well, no, I think there are a lot of people who think that when a Republican is elected president or a Democrat is elected president in a given situation, that there are going to be certain long-held beliefs that will carry forward through that administration and policies. And this is the president who has basically said is that if I believe we're getting, say, unfair trade deals, and we have been getting them for years, and many presidents of both parties have complained about it, I will talk about tariffs. I will use something that goes against Republican orthodoxy to achieve my policy goal. And for those who have made careers or have long lists of experiences, supporting no tariffs or lower tariffs, that can rub people and create a tension between them that they're just not on board with. And I think that's where people have got to understand. Can you serve? Can you remember he's the man that was elected? And he's
is that what needs to happen here? Mark Lauder, is this what needs to happen here? John Kelly's got to have a staff meeting, or maybe the president's got to have a staff meeting and say, okay, in or out? You don't like me, get out. Is that what needs to happen?
Well, I don't know if it would be a staff meeting or something as broad as that. But I think, there are probably some folks in there that need to ask themselves questions, and they need to know whether they can serve the administration, and they need to make that decision for themselves. But they also need to know that if you're staying, you are committed to the goals of this administration and this president, and by releasing these things, you're creating more of that division that you say you're seeking to undo.
Mark Lauder, I'm going to let you go. Really appreciate you taking the time. As my people say, you're a good mensch. You're a mensch, so thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jeff.
Much appreciated. I want to go back to the White House, guys. It's an extraordinary statement. You'll all have read it. I've passed it around. I think this is this is a statement from the press secretary regarding the anonymous New York Times op-ed from the White House. I promise you, I have a feeling I know who dictated this statement. But let me read it from the top. Nearly 62 million people voted for President Donald J. Trump in 2016, earning him 306 electoral votes versus 232 for his opponent. None of them voted for a gutless, anonymous source to the failing New York Times. We are disappointed but not surprised that the paper chose to publish this pathetic, reckless, and selfish op-ed. This is a new low for the so-called paper of record, and it should issue an apology, just as it did after the election, for its disastrous coverage of the Trump campaign. This is just another example of the liberal media's concerted effort to discredit the president. It goes on, but I think you get the gist. Kristen Welker, I think all of us know this president well enough to know this isn't Sarah Sanders' words, because I notice we don't see her name here. It's a statement from the press secretary, but
and we know he likes to talk about the election results. I mean, that's the top of the statement, and so of course you have to think of the president himself having potentially dictated this, Chuck. There's no doubt about that. But look, I think that you have in this statement something that echoes what we just heard from President Trump himself. And And in terms of the broader issue, I want to go back to a point you just asked. Mark Lauder, did he ever hear these types of conversations when he was at the White House? The reality is, whether it's the Woodward book or this New York Times op-ed, both bombshells, they echo and sort of add more context to so much of the reporting that we've been doing along the way, Chuck. This is not isolated, in essence. This builds upon what we have been reporting on, whether it be that John Kelly called the president an idiot. That's something that we reported several months ago, or former Secretary of State referring to him as a moron. All of that sort of speaking to what officials here have described as dysfunction. So their strategy clearly is to remind folks of the president's election results and then to attack the media. And I think that's going to be their strategy moving forward. But it doesn't get away from the fact that these headlines are not an anomaly.
No, they're not. Anyway, Kristen, thank you. Guys, you haven't had a chance to talk after I've had Mark Lauder, Kristen Walker. I'm going to shut up. Shane?
Well, one thing that strikes me we're having this conversation about, as Ruth pointed out and others have made, why doesn't somebody stand up, say who they are, and resign? The author of this piece actually has an answer to that, which is they've decided basically to stay and fight, right? They're staying, they want to act as the guardrails. The author says they even believe in the administration's policy. So
a lot of policies on national security, they're making cases.
So they're making the case like we are here to serve and we want to do this. That leads to a second problem, though, which is that we don't have governments run by self-appointed guardrails. So this person describes, in his words, a two-track, or, well, I think the tweet from the Times may be implying it's but maybe not, a two-track presidency. Somebody explain to me what a two-track presidency is. We elect the president, and whether you like Donald Trump or not, he is the elected president. Now what we have from Bob Woodward's reporting and from this op-ed, it's very clear, a group of people who have anointed themselves to make decisions about how the government is supposed to be run. You may like how those decisions turn out, but that is not how this government is supposed to work.
And that's a fair point. We have a U.S. Constitution for a reason.
And there's another important point here, which is that Mark Lauder did a very, an impressive job of trying to make it appear as if, well, this just describes a situation like Abraham Lincoln and Team of Rivals, where you have a fractious set of people.
It's probably what you'd be stuck having to say.
Right, no, I am.
And that is the best attribute of the president, in that he doesn't mind having people in the room that disagree.
But the point is not that the president has advisors who disagree. The point is that this op-ed and other renditions that we have had of this presidency throughout its course describes an erratic president who does not know his mind from day to day and changes on a whim and can't be
impeachable offense or 25th Amendment triggering condition. I don't think
it's I didn't say that it was. I don't think an erratic president is an impeachable offense. And I think
an election. No. And I say this in that, don't the November midterms, in some ways, isn't this going to be the voters' opportunity to make the case? And if somehow, I believe this, I think it's the Senate that sends, that if the Democrats win the Senate, Republicans have to look in the mirror and say there's only one reason that happens.
And if Republicans win the Senate,
Trump, right?
But if Republicans win the Senate, people have to say this dysfunction is producing extraordinary economic and judicial change.
Well, and what it will do, it'll be the people are saying, look, we know it's chaotic, but we're saying we'll tolerate the chaos.
Yeah.
I think, Shane, that the November midterms, we keep raising the stakes. I feel like Marissa Tomei, I feel like Joe Pesci and my cousin Vinny when he's like, what else do you want to pile onto this? Midterms. But we're piling a lot of these. But
I think that's exactly right. And I think for a long time, it's really all been about the midterms, right? Is to be instructive about where we go next. And my God, could the stakes be any higher? And, I wonder whether or not things like the Woodward book and things like this, how people's thinking. I mean, we are 60 days out now from the elections. We are entering into the spring. So these things matter. These land in a news environment in which people are listening, paying more attention, making decisions. This
I think that we shouldn't overestimate the number of people whose minds are up for grabs here. There are a lot of people who think that I'm not necessarily among them, but we've been in 25th Amendment territory, and for a long time there are a lot of people who will listen to the president and say, gutless New York Times, out to get them, fake news, don't believe it. So there's a very small segment of people who if they're going to be moved by this, they've already been pretty wobbly.
What happens to everyone who watched the circus in the Senate yesterday? So the chaos is not just limited to the White House. It was a circus. The demonstrators...
It's a country government over there.
It is. And so they might just say, the voters just might say, to hell with all... I mean, the 1% of America that watches cable news loves this. 98% watched Hard Knocks last night. They think the Browns going to win games. That's okay. That's what.
I just want to know if they're going to cover against the Steelers when I get it to my place corner tomorrow in game 1. Let me bring in Michael Beschloss here because this is historic. We think it's historically unprecedented, but that's why we have an NBC News and presidential historian. So Michael Beschloss, we think this is unprecedented. I guess you could say there were times during Wilson's illness that maybe staffers piped up. Perhaps I'm trying to think of other times where you might have had something like this. I don't know. Michael, you're the expert here. Tell us where this fits.
If we're straining for some kind of a parallel, in the last weeks of Richard Nixon, people around Nixon were worried about how he might behave if he were pushed to the brink of resignation. James Schlesinger, the Secretary of Defense, told people in the Pentagon, if you get a message from Nixon for something like putting tanks around the White House, or using the 101st Airborne, or using the military to somehow keep himself in office, they were really talking this way. Schlesinger said, disregard that order unless it is countersigned by me. At the time, Henry Kissinger, the Secretary of State, was privately saying, Al Haig, the White House Chief of Staff, was holding the country together, and he, Kissinger, was holding the world together. But that's not at this level, Chuck. I've never seen anything like this in modern presidential history. If you think about it, someone who's in place, in a high position in the Trump administration, saying the president is unstable, to the level possibly of the 25th Amendment. The president is amoral. That's the word that was used. Has weird views on Russians and dictators and terrorists. Is a dangerous man who has to be restrained. Plus, the writer is saying, there is a group around the president who's doing exactly that. We have never seen anything remotely like this.
It is. I'm just sort of, I hear you describe this, Michael, and when you describe it in sort of, when I hear you, I hear it in historical terms. Hugh, it's sort of hard to put this in perspective in the moment that we're in right now.
Well, I'm fairly close to Nixon as I am, and Michael knows this very well.
You spent a lot of time.
I spent a lot of time with President Nixon in his retirement in San Clemente and in New York. We're not anywhere close to Watergate land. I listened again to the Woodward Trump tape today. That's a man in complete control of the office, and I think his personality is a feature, not a bug, and that many, many Americans are comfortable with that. And Conrad Black has written a book about him. He uses the term, I don't like it, truthful hyperbole, but if you put a real estate developer in the White House, you get a real estate developer in the White House, and I've worked for a lot of them. A lot of them are just like this.
So I would like to say that his personality may be a feature for a lot of people. It may be a bug for being president. And I'm flashing on Jeb Bush's warning that he was a chaos candidate and he was going to be a chaos president.
I say this for Jeb. It is, I remember we all mocked him for that line because it just was weird at the time.
Well,
it is the most prescient analysis from that era because it's true. It's never felt like anything other than just simply chaotic.
And Q, I'm sorry, I just do not think a chaos presidency is healthy for the country. Whether or not you agree with its be happy with its economic performance or the judges that it's getting confirmed.
For the Beltway, but I will argue that the results of the last 2 years, I know you said country, but I will say Beltway because the Constitution is working. The president is not a king. He is not an authoritarian. He cannot aspire to be an authoritarian. He only gets to do what he's allowed to do, and he has a team around him that is making it work.
But this author is describing a team around him that is keeping him from acting like a tyrant, that is keeping him from ordering the assassinations of world leaders, that is keeping him from scrapping programs to build a nuclear umbrella in North Korea, to keep from stopping World War III. I mean, yes, there are people who are, perhaps executing his policies, but the description we're getting is also a group of people who are keeping us from going over the edge of the cliff.
And by the way, this is a week that has featured presidential tweets about how it's outrageous for his Department of Justice to bring, as far as I can tell, very well predicated serious cases of corruption against members of his party because it might cause him a problem. That is not okay. That is not right.
Michael, let me get you back in here for one more bite at this apple, which is history judge a decision that where if somehow the entity of the government, at the end of the day, we have never, the entity of government has never removed a president. Okay, they resigned. Right, it never got to that point. I look at how we would judge other democracies when we see a president removed. Right, the most recent example in a semi-democracy was Egypt. You know, in some form. How do you think history would treat this era if the government entities, the Constitution, was used to remove a president?
If we're talking about the 25th Amendment.
Or there's two ways the Constitution works. Exactly. Either way, where the voters aren't having the say, the institutions are making this decision.
They would say, Chuck, that the system works. You know,
Exactly.
That's the reason we have those things. That's the reason we have impeachment, and it's also why we have a 25th Amendment, which only came up by 1967 because people
and also,
were in a situation
let's just say that
and the Congress made it specifically difficult. As you know, you want
it is the people speaking. If the people believe in the Constitution, then it is the people's wills. If people actually believe in their government, then it is the people's will. If it's actually enacted for the people for which we stand, then yes, it's legal and the people want it. Okay, I'll come back to this later.